My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. I refer to Labor's new family car and ute tax. In my home state of Victoria, in 2023, 78% of sales were either SUVs or light commercial vehicles and utes. The top-selling cars were the Ford Ranger, Toyota Hilux and the Isuzu D-Max. Industry analysis shows that they would attract penalties of up to $17,000, $14,000 and $13,000 respectively by 2029. Why does this Labor government want to punish Aussie families and tradies for their choices?
Just before I call the Minister, I want to hear from the member for Goldstein on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Standing Order 100. Questions must not contain statements of facts unless they can be authenticated, nor containing hypothetical matter. The question is based on a false premise, and we should not be spreading disinformation in this chamber in questions or answers.
Order. Order. The member for Petrie will leave the chamber under 94A. And I ask all members to show respect when members are taking points of order. That was utterly disrespectful. Whilst I understand the member's point, and she's entitled to raise a point of order, order. Members on my right, I want to hear from. I didn't hear what was said. I was trying to deal with the member's point of order. There's a lot happening today. I'm just going to ask everyone for silence so I can hear from the member for Wannon.
Help the House if the member for McEwen withdrew.
Just ask the member to withdraw. I thank the member for McEwen. While Standing Order 100, the member is correct. I'm sure the member, I can't vouch for everything that is said in every single question or answer. I respect the member for Flinders that she has done her homework and she has done her research, but I'm not the judge of whether that research is accurate or not. So the minister will be able to respond whether he believes the member to be correct or not, whether he believes that they may perhaps— the member for Goldstein on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would merely say facts are facts. They're not a matter of opinion.
Resume your seat. Order. I'm just going to call the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And again, I very much welcome the question and the chance to correct the misinformation being put by those opposite. And the member for Flinders will be interested to know that her average constituent drives 18,911 kilometres a year and would save $1,503 in fuel costs, Mr Speaker, if they had access to more efficient cars. The member for Flinders might want to explain to her constituents why she's against more choice for them. Now, this is the latest, Mr Speaker, in a long line of misinformation. We have the continual claims from those opposite about car prices. Now, the analysis released by the Minister for Transport and I made very clear that in no country that has introduced vehicle efficiency standards have increases in the price of cars resulted from that policy. The member for Bradfield, he agrees with that. He agrees with that, Mr Speaker, because he said it himself on many occasions when he was very, very eloquently putting the case. Now, this is just the latest example of misinformation, Mr Speaker. We saw the Leader of the Opposition last week talking about the current situation.
The Minister will pause. I have been very generous with the member for Hume and explained to him in quite detail about his interjections and being warned, and he'll leave the chamber under 94A. That is not how question time will operate. The Minister will be heard in silence.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Leader of the Opposition said last week, on February the 9th, now we have some of the highest efficiency standards in the world in terms of our vehicles. Now, there's a couple of small problems with that statement. You could argue about whether the highest or the lowest if they existed, Mr Speaker, but the fact of the matter is Australia doesn't have any fuel efficiency standards, a point that was made by the member for Bradfield in his op-ed in The Australian when he said 80% of the global vehicle passenger fleet is subject to fuel efficiency standards, but Australia has none. And we've seen other examples, Mr Speaker. A man who's received a bit of attention in question time today, Senator Canavan, not the most outrageous thing he said, but it's pretty outrageous. He said, the government of Australia has decided to introduce the world's most aggressive emissions limits on vehicles here in Australia. Again, Mr Speaker, clear misinformation when you consider, I confess to the House, the standards that the Minister for Transport and I are consulting on are proposing are less ambitious than those that exist in Europe, in New Zealand and in other key markets, Mr Speaker, because we have carefully designed them to deliver benefits to the Australian people. $140 billion in benefits to all Australians between now and 2050, Mr Speaker. $12 billion in fuel savings to motorists by 2030, Mr Speaker. The average new car buyer in 2028 will cut their annual fuel costs by around $1,000, Mr Speaker. Health benefits, which is why this policy has been welcomed by the Australian Medical Association, as well as the peak motoring group, CNRMA, Mr Speaker, and called for by the RACQ and the RACW and welcomed by Hyundai, Volkswagen, BMW, Kia and Volvo, to name a few. This is what good policy looks like. Careful consultation over a 12-month period, taking many submissions and putting Australian motorists first while those opposite put Australian motorists last, equal with the motorists in Russia, where the Leader of the Opposition wants to align his policy.